I'm Cherylanne Skolnicki, and this is Brilliant Balance, the show for working women who are ready to shine. Each week, I bring you ideas, inspiration, and insight on balance, business, and getting it all done gracefully. You ready? Let's be brilliant. This is episode 334 of the Brilliant Balance podcast, Navigating Seasons of Change or Challenge. So welcome back to the show, my friends. I love this topic that we're going to get into today because it seems to be a really common theme among the women who I get to coach. And I suspect, therefore, that it really is a common theme among the listeners of this show as well. So if you are someone listening today and you tuned into this episode because you thought, wait, that's me. I'm navigating a season of change or a season of particular challenge, I think you're going to feel right at home. You're really in the right place. This is a season of life, midlife, where I think a lot of us do face repeated seasons of change. Things change kind of quickly. And also where we're navigating a series of challenges, lots of things that can happen. We had an episode just a few back in the backlog of episodes about, it's called You're Not Doing It Wrong. It's Just That Hard. I think it's episode 331 if you're looking for it. And we got a lot of feedback about that episode because I think that's something we tell ourselves, why is this so hard? We say that to ourselves when maybe, in fact, we're just in a season that's particularly challenging, or we're navigating something that has, a fair level of change happening to us or around us. So I want to talk first in this episode, because I really want to spend most of our time focused on how do you navigate these seasons. And I thought about saying like surviving the season, right? Or dealing with the season or crushing the season even. And I thought, no, it really is. This is a navigational metaphor that works. Like you're going to get through it some way, somehow. And so much of it is about steering, right? And finding your flow and not fighting what is happening around you. So first, let's talk about what are a few of the signs. What might you notice that could be a clue or tell you, hey, you know what? This might be a season of change that I'm in, or this might be a season of challenge that I really have to navigate. Okay, first sign is you might notice that your old ways of doing things aren't working. Like we all have these tried and true approaches, right? The way we do things is the way we do things. And I think that if you start to notice that, my way of doing things just isn't working right now. I'm doing it, but it's not creating the outcome that I really want. That is a really good sign that something around you may have shifted or changed. And I cannot help but think about parenting in this case. I have 3 teenagers. As I record this, they are 13, 16, and 19. And I think it sneaks up on you, right? The shifts, even those 3 are in 3 really different stages of development. And if I think back to where I was just a few years ago, maybe just take 3 years back when they would have been 10, 13, and 16, or 3 years before that when they were 7, 10, and 13. Like the way that I have to parent, the approaches that work, the ways that we do things are just so different. And it happens so gradually that you're almost in a perpetual state of change, right, in parenting. So that's one signal that your way of doing something just doesn't feel like it's working anymore. The second sign you might notice when you're in one of these seasons is that your emotions are raw, right? Your emotions are just raw. You notice that maybe you are more prone to tears. They come more quickly, or you can't turn them off, as happens to me, right? Or you might notice that you're more prone to anger, that you snap at things more quickly. You feel like you have a really short fuse more often than you would think is normal for you, right? So those emotions, like they come on more easily. Maybe they stick around longer. You can't break the cycle as readily. And it could be all kinds of emotions, but I think the 2 I hear about the most, particularly with the women that I'm in dialogue with, are anger and tears. And we don't really talk about tears as sadness because I don't think our tears often represent sadness. Sometimes they do, but often they're like the overflow valve, right? For just overwhelm. We're so overloaded. We have so much going on. And it's like, I cannot do all of this at once. And that can cue the tears. And we can cry when we're hurt, right? If something hurts our feelings, if we can cry when we're frustrated. And all of those, that's why I think we talk about the tears and the anger and not like the sadness and the anger. I don't think that the tears are only associated with sadness. So if those emotional responses are like on, the volume is turned up on them or the frequency is turned up, I think that is a really good signal that you might be in one of these seasons. A third sign is that, and you can think about this in two different ways. You can think about getting a level of output requires more effort, or that the same effort you've always put in is delivering a lower output. So that's kind of a nerdy, as I say it out loud, I'm like, that's kind of a nerdy way of saying this, but let's unpack it a little bit. Let's say it's like, you're like, my God, I'm still working the same number of hours, right? I'm still getting to my desk at, make it up, 8:30, and I'm at my desk until 5, but I'm getting less done. Right? And depending on what your work life looks like, it could be, I'm taking the same number of meetings, I'm writing the same number of pages, like whatever your metric of effort is, it's just that effort is not delivering the same amount of output. There's a gap. So, and you could think of this maybe as your efficiency is off kilter. Like, here's my effort, my return on effort just isn't as high. So I think we come through these seasons with two different approaches. Some people instinctively are going to dial back just how much effort they're putting in. And other people are going to really try to like run headlong into it and maintain the same level of effort. And again, you're noticing like, is this delivering the results that I would expect? So what I think is happening in the middle there is it's like there is a mental load, a cognitive load associated with the challenge or the change that you're navigating. And picture it like it's running in the background all the time. You're a part of your brain is trying to sort through the change or the challenge, right? You have something happening in your life. Let's say that your father is in the hospital. And that is it. That is a thing that is happening. And you are navigating all of the associated doctor's appointments and the emotional distress and, maybe supporting your mother through that. All of those things, by the way, just because I have people listening to this podcast who know me, my father is not in the hospital, but that is an example of something that might be just taking up a lot of headspace that it can lower your output, right? It's like it's running in the background and needing to think about it. You might have decisions that you're trying to make. Maybe your family has started talking about moving and you have just all of the noise around the potential move, where you might move. Could you sell your house? Could you buy the house? What kind of a house would you be able to buy? That, even if you're not actively trying to solve the problem in the moment, it's like it's taking up processing bandwidth, right? And so there's just not as much left to go toward your normal tasks. And that's what I think is lowering that output level. So you may not have a clear recognition of why at first, but you might notice that your output level is down. So I think that when I think about these seasons and want to help you recognize, am I in one? If you're sitting there right now going, oh my gosh, I think I am. And now that we're talking about it, I maybe even can put my finger on why, right? What's the source of the change or the challenge that I'm navigating? And maybe that was obvious. Maybe it's just now coming into your mind. I want to outline a few things that we can do to navigate these seasons. And there's one thing that I think is like the key. And then I want to talk about a few other things that we can do or like what it might require of you. The main key to navigating one of these seasons I have found is adopting what I'll call a normal for now approach. Normal for now, right? This is what allows you to stop fighting what is and instead find a way to ride it out, knowing that it's temporary, right? You get to a place where I think one of the things that stops us from being able to adopt this mindset shift is our brain is going, oh my gosh, if it is like this forever, I will never make it. right? I can't do this forever. And the reality is so many of these seasons are temporary. They have varying durations. We don't always know what the duration is going to be when we start, when we embark on this particular chapter. But is the sooner we can get to, okay, this is my normal for now, just for now. Okay. Let's go back to the example of if your father's in the hospital, going to hospital visits, talking to physicians, making appointments and follow-up appointments, all of those things, they're normal for now. This is how we're going to do things for the time being. I remember when my youngest daughter had a pretty serious knee injury that required surgery. And we had a season during which she was on crutches, trying to get well enough to even have the surgery. Like we had to get to a certain point before we could have the surgery. And then we had to go backwards, right? And have the surgery and go back into crutches and, a big leg brace for a long period of time. That season, all of the things associated with that, right? Her transportation requirements and the appointments and then the physical therapy appointments. And, and luckily for us, it was quote unquote just knee surgery, but it was really disruptive. And so adopting okay, this is what life looks like right now. She can't go up and down the stairs. We're going to have to set up a room for her on the first floor is just that's an example that maybe is easy to wrap your head around of what normal for now might look like. Again, whatever you are navigating, getting your arms around this has changed. And if I continue to try to do everything the way I was doing it before, it's probably not going to work. That example with knee surgery is a season of challenge, right? This is a temporary disruption. I'm going to get through it. When I was talking at the very beginning of the episode about parenting through the stages of teenagers, as they're moving from childhood to early adolescence to late adolescence, that's a sort of ever evolving change. We have to keep picking up. Okay, well, that chapter's apparently over. Here's what's normal for now. This chapter will end as well. This is what's normal for now. So there's a kind of rolling sequence of change that can happen. Hi, it's Cherylanne. Thanks for listening. Did you know that the ideas I share on this show are things I also can help you implement? If you want me in your corner helping you find more time for what fills you up, go to brilliant-balance.com/schedule and sign up for a free exploratory call. Give yourself this time. You'll be so glad you did. So how do you do that? What are some of the things required of you that maybe would be helpful to you as you are trying to adopt this normal for now approach? I have 4 of them that I want to talk about. The first one is giving yourself a moment to regroup, right? Regrouping is sort of your time to think and reassess, especially getting clear about what is in or out of your control. In this season, what can I control? What can I not control, right? Where am I going to engage? Where am I not going to engage? Where is my time going to be really well spent, high return on that effort? Where is my time maybe not so well spent, right? I am barking up the wrong tree with this kind of effort. That moment when I'm saying regroup, this is what I think of as maybe a coffee shop moment. Maybe it's an early morning. You sit down in a chair with a notebook and a pencil and you're thinking through, all right, how am I going to do this? How am I going to get regrouped here on what is really happening? I'm going to have to acknowledge reality. I got to think about the domino effect that this particular season is having in my life and start to think about where I'm going to make adjustments, right? Where am I going to have to make adjustments? So that sort of date with yourself. Maybe it's a conversation with someone else. Maybe you talk to your spouse or your partner about it. Maybe you're talking to a parent. Maybe you're talking to a friend. But you can also do this alone, just thinking through, okay, what is happening here? And what do I really need to adjust? Second thing that I think is very helpful is finding anchor points that can stay consistent. Right? The simplest way to think about this is maybe what are your healthy rituals? What are the things you do that keep you, I am always saying healthy, whole, and human, the things that just make you feel solid and grounded in your life. Finding some anchor points that you can maintain so you are clear, I am tethered to this and this at least has not changed. It can be elements of your faith life. It can be practices of mindfulness or quiet. It can be physical movement. It could be your eating habits. It could be your sleep schedule. What are things that you are going to sort of protect? You're going to put boundaries up around them and say, this is the thing that's going to keep me vertical during the season. I'm going to really hold on to this is something that can, in fact, stay the same. And then conversely, I want you to think about point 3, where can you intentionally lighten your load? Right? If you're carrying this new thing, if the change itself or the challenge itself is heavy, where can you intentionally lighten your load? And this looks like letting go, honestly, of some things that felt important before, but now are non-essential. These are like the nice to haves. And what I think is really important to underscore here is there's like levels of defining nice to have. Right? When everything is going along smoothly and you are in a smooth sailing chapter, you got room for a lot more nice to haves, right? They can start to even feel like must haves, right? But when you're in a season of challenge, when there's a lot of turbulence, you kind of have to know how you would strip this down to the essentials. So lightening your load is saying, what are some things that I am asking of myself that I have no business asking of myself during this particular season, right? It's just not time for this. Maybe you committed to it before all of this started. Maybe it sounded like a great time to do this particular thing, but now you know. Now you know that in this season, there's just not going to be room for that. Okay. So that is something that I think is a continuous process. It's a continuous reevaluation of, can I take this on? And I'll tell you, some of these things might look like leisure, right? Some of them might look like work. Some of them might look like volunteer commitments. Some of them might look like things that you normally would do around the house, but they're either not going to get done at all or they're not going to get done by you in this particular season. This is where you might think about bringing in some outside help, right? Either from people that are already in your family or your work team, or you might think about hiring incremental help. So that is definitely one way to intentionally lighten your load, but it could just be saying, I'm pressing pause on this. I wanted to do this, but I'm going to press pause on it during this particular season because I am self-imposing this pressure and it doesn't have to be that way. Okay. And then the last one that I want to talk about that's really important is building, if you don't have one, or leveraging your support system. Building or leveraging your support system. This is the power of having someone who can see what you can't. Someone who is outside the situation enough to preserve some objectivity, right? They can calibrate you on what is really happening. They are not looking at it from the inside. They're looking at it from just outside, right? And so when you're thinking to yourself, like, am I crazy? Am I losing it here? Or does this sound right to you? Or, I really cannot imagine any other way. And you're kind of stuck in a level of rigidity. This support network could be one person, could be a small collection of people, can serve as a set of eyes and ears. They can provide perspective that you are probably not going to be able to find on your own. So where I see this play out a lot in coaching is if I am coaching someone who is going through one of these seasons, their ability to define independently what they can let go of is pretty limited. Because again, our brains are so overloaded during these seasons, we can't even really think straight. And so sometimes I or other members of the coaching team are able to provide ideas to them that they're like, oh my gosh, it never would have even occurred to me that that's something I could lay down for now. That's something I could let go of. Sometimes there's resources that can be really helpful in these seasons of challenge or change that can be provided from someone who has been there before, right? Someone who has already walked that path and says, oh, I know what you do, right? I know who you call. I know how this works. I know what the process is. And if you are flying blind because you have never done this before, right? This is new to you. it's so soothing to have someone sort of explaining to you, let me kind of lay out what's going to happen here in these next few paths. And you can probably imagine, you can think back to something you have been through that was true. Something where you were like, I just had no idea. I vividly remember, this is a silly example maybe, but I was in the delivery room getting ready to have my first child. And I called my best friend and said, I was terrified of getting an epidural. And I just remember saying to her, like, I just don't know what to expect. And she gave me a description of exactly what was going to happen. Like, hey, this is what's going to happen. She had had her fourth child, or was about to. And it was very clear to her, like, she could give me a description, kind of the play by play. It settled me down so much. Again, that wasn't a season but that was the first of many, many things about parenting that she was able to kind of unpack for me or explain to me as I was going through them. Right? You might think about if you have been through a difficult illness, right? Maybe you are a breast cancer survivor, and you think about how you can pay forward to newly diagnosed friends or family members. Hey, here's what the path looked like. Here's how things unfolded in those early days. It's so powerful to have a guide or a collection of peers around you who can provide that perspective, because they're just outside the situation enough. And it is, in all of those examples I just gave you, extremely powerful when they have been through the exact same thing. But sometimes you just need someone who can see it with less emotion and more objectivity. So it's a really powerful tool that I don't want you to look past. Okay. So let's review a couple things that I was sharing today. First thing is, what are the signs that you are in one of these seasons? You're going to notice that your old ways of doing things maybe just aren't working, right? They've worked forever and all of a sudden they're not. You might notice that your emotions are extra dialed up, right? The tears are coming easier. The anger is coming faster. And you might notice that there is kind of a discrepancy between effort and output, that what you're doing just isn't delivering the same level of output, because again, you have this background hum running all the time of the challenge or the change that you're trying to process. And I was saying that the number one thing I want you to take away is adopting a normal for now approach, getting to acceptance quickly that this is reality now and it's temporary, right? So that you can stop fighting what is and kind of railing against that, and instead figure out, what are you going to do to ride it out? And then we talked about 4 things that you can do to help you get through the season. The first is make some time to think. Get a plan, reassess, right? Decide what is in your control, what's not in your control, and the things that are in your control where you can make some changes that will make this a little bit easier. You want to make those. And you may have to do that more than one time throughout the season. Second thing was finding anchor points, things that can stay consistent in your habits and routines and rituals that will keep you feeling like you. Very important during seasons when a lot is changing around you. Third was to intentionally lighten your load. What can you lay down, at least temporarily, so you can give more effort, more headspace, more attention to the thing that needs it? And then finally, making sure that you leverage your support system or build one if you don't have one, right? It can feel maybe a little overwhelming to do that, but it really is within an arm's reach. It's one phone call, one text, one ask away in most cases. And it can be such an important lifeline during these seasons. So again, if you find that you are in one of these seasons, I hope you're getting something out of today's episode that's valuable. If you have a friend or a family member that you know is in one of these seasons and you want to pass this on to them, I would love it if you would do that. And of course, if I can support you through one of these seasons in any way, shape, or form, don't hesitate to reach out. You can DM me. You can respond to an email if you're already on my list. You can go to our website at brilliant-balance.com to get connected. And just know that we are all in this together, right? And until next time, let's be brilliant.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.